I've been known from a young age to be a bit of an existentialist, asking big questions. And when I found this pocket of the world of horror, I was hooked. Cosmic horror is about more than monsters. It's about ideas, the terror of the infinite, unknowable forces that render humanity small, fragile, and insignificant, and toy with your perception of reality. Lovecraft called it the fear of the unknown. These films tap into that fear in unique and unforgettable ways, blending dread, madness, and mystery. This isn't just a countdown, y'all. It's a journey into the abyss. And we kick things off with number 13, Stuart Gordon's Reanimator from 1985. On the surface, it is a wild, gore-soaked splatterfest with a pitch black sense of humor. But underneath the camp is one of the most Lovecraftian stories ever filmed. Based on Herbert West's Reanimator, it follows a brilliant but arrogant medical student obsessed with defeating death itself. Herbert West's glowing green serum resurrects corpses, but the results are always monstrous, proof that death isn't meant to be tempered with. Cosmic horror thrives on the arrogance of mankind, and West embodies it perfectly. He believes he can control forces that are, by their nature, uncontrollable. What he creates are not miracles, they're abominations, writhing, half-conscious things that shouldn't exist. Unlike traditional horror, where the villain can be defeated, West's work suggests something darker. There are fates worse than death, and human curiosity is what unleashes them. That, at its core, is cosmic horror. I remember seeing the cover of this at the local video store when I was a kid, and I couldn't help but pick it up. And this was, I think, the second cosmic horror movie I ever saw. And from a very young age, I have had a thought about conquering death. I don't like to think about it too awfully long. So the intention of the main character here was so resonant to me that I've always had a soft spot in my heart for this flick. Number 12, we go forward to 2005's The Call of Cthulhu. This film is a treasure for Lovecraft fans. Instead of modernizing the story, director Andrew Lehman and the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society created The Call of Cthulhu as a 1920-style silent film. The result feels like a lost artifact. Feels like lost media, a movie that could have existed when Lovecraft himself was alive. The story follows the classic novella, with a young man uncovering the writings of his late uncle and piecing together the existence of a global cult worshipping the slumbering god Cthulhu. The brilliance of this adaptation is that it doesn't rely on spectacle. Cthulhu himself is shown in stop motion, deliberately artificial, emphasizing that what matters is not the monster's appearance, but the madness that his knowledge inspires. Lovecraft always insisted that true horror lies in what is suggested, not shown. This movie proves him right. It's more unsettling than a lot of big budget adaptations because it understands that cosmic horror isn't about CGI creatures. It's about human beings realizing that their world is just a thin layer covering something vast and terrifying. Number 11, we go to 2020's The Night House. Grief itself is a form of cosmic horror, and The Night House makes that connection frankly, beautifully. Rebecca Hall stars as a woman mourning her husband's sudden death. As she explores the lakeside house they shared, she begins to sense a presence, something watching, something waiting. What unfolds is part ghost story, part metaphysical mystery. The deeper she digs, the more she uncovers about her husband's secret life and the strange structures he built out in the woods. These discoveries don't just suggest infidelity, they suggest he was bargaining with forces beyond death itself. The film's brilliance is that it treats grief as an eye-opening, a crack in the psyche through which cosmic dread seeps in. By the end, the haunting isn't just personal, it's existential. It suggests that death is not an ending, but a continuation into something cruel, indifferent, and eternal. And that is far scarier than any haunted house. Number 10, we have 2017's The Endless. Directors Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead specialize in intimate cosmic horror. And The Endless is, frankly, their masterpiece. The story follows two brothers who revisit the cult they escaped as children, only to realize the cult may not have been delusional after all. What they find is reality breaking down, time loops, strange symbols in the sky, people trapped in endless cycles of death and rebirth, all seemingly orchestrated by a vast, unseen presence that may or may not be a god. What's chilling is how casual the cult members are about the whole thing. For them, worshipping this entity isn't madness, it's just daily life. The film's greatest strength is its patience. It doesn't bombard the audience with jump scares or gore. Instead, it builds dread through implication, through little hints that reality is far bigger and far stranger than we can comprehend. By the time the brothers realize they can't escape, we as viewers feel trapped too, caught in a loop of existential terror. This was pitched to me by my wife as a UFO cult movie, and I was in for it. There is a feel of like a found footage hominess to it. We all know how much I love found footage, and so I was in totally unaware that I was going to experience what would go on to become one of my absolute favorite entries into cosmic horror. Number 9, we have 2013's Coherence. Made for just $50,000, Coherence is proof that you don't need a big budget to create cosmic horror. That's one of the beautiful things about horror. It is a home for small budgets and intimate settings. You just need ideas that unsettle reality itself. The story begins pretty simply. A group of friends gather for dinner. There's a party on the night a comet passes overhead. And then things get weird. Phones stop working. Lights begin to flicker. And soon the friends realize that there are other versions of themselves. Other realities bleeding together. What begins as confusion spirals into paranoia. Who's the real version of you? If infinite choices exist, what happens to free will? Unlike most cosmic horror films, there is a monster. There's no cult. There's not even an alien god. The horror here is existential. The terror of being unmoored from a single reality. It's science fiction, absolutely. But it is also deeply Lovecraftian because it strips the illusion of control away and replaces it with the terrifying vastness of possibility. Number 8 was one that I'm still to this day frankly surprised how much I like this movie. It's 2012's Cabin in the Woods. On the surface, Cabin in the Woods looks like every cliche horror film ever made, firmly set in the era of what seemed like endless horror comedies, one right after another. And frankly, I was not into the horror comedy boom that was happening in the 2010s. And I actually didn't see this one until after my wife and I got married. She absolutely loves this movie. A group of young, attractive friends head to a remote cabin. They drink, they fool around, and then they get picked off one by one. But then the curtain pulls back, and what we thought was a slasher film becomes something a whole lot bigger. Behind the scenes, technicians control the entire ordeal, offering sacrifices to appease ancient gods, slumbering beneath the earth. The film is part parody. It's also part love letter, though, to horror tropes, to the history of horror. And if you caught my roadmap to becoming a horror fan video, you know just how much I appreciate the history of horror. But its final act, this movie descends into pure, unadulterated cosmic horror. Humanity really doesn't matter. They're just part of a ritual cycle to keep gods beyond comprehension from rising. The most chilling part? The implication that all horror stories, every vampire, every zombie, every ghost, every slasher, are just different sacrifices in the same ritual. Horror itself becomes cosmic horror, a game that we, the audience, play to keep the abyss from swallowing us. And you figure a movie like this is going to have a cutesy ending. No, by the time this thing is over, it's Reservoir Dogs. By the time this thing is over, it is the full-blown end of the world. Number 7, we've got 2020's The Empty Man. This film was doomed by poor marketing. Audiences expected a Slender Man-style creepypasta movie about a killer urban legend. Even the box art for this thing looks like it is a ripoff of Slender Man. Instead, though, we got a 2-hour descent into cults, madness, and swallowing cosmic horror on a grand scale that makes you feel completely and utterly powerless by the end of this thing. The Empty Man begins with missing teens and a whispered legend, and you think it's going to be a standard supernatural fare, which I'll be the first one to admit I'm pretty forgiving as far as supernatural and paranormal movies go. I have a sweet spot for it in the same way that I have a sweet spot for found footage. For me, it's kind of like pizza. Bad pizza is better than no pizza, so I was still in. But as the protagonist digs deeper, he uncovers a vast conspiracy, a cult that believes in an ancient deity called the Empty Man. The closer he gets to the truth, the more reality itself starts to bend around him. And what makes this film extraordinary is the final act. The protagonist isn't just a detective. He's part of the grand design of this entity. He was never real to begin with. And that revelation, that even identity itself can be stripped away, makes for one of the boldest cosmic horror films of the 21st century. Number 6, we get a bit more colorful with Nicolas Cage's 2019 Color Out of Space. I did not like this movie at first. I'll be the first one to admit. And there's parts of it is it touches on some of the lines that I don't like to cross in what I appreciate about horror. There are some things, everybody's got their lines that they don't like to cross, and one of them is very vividly crossed in this movie, and I wasn't really a fan, and I kind of said no after that point, but I went back and gave it another chance in lieu of making this video, and while Nick Cage is battling an alien meteor, and that sounds all the bit of a campy B movie that it can be at times. But Richard Stanley's adaptation of Lovecraft's Color Out of Space is something a whole lot stranger. It's one of the most faithful depictions of Lovecraft's vision ever filmed. And I would argue that you need somebody as ridiculous as Nick Cage to pull it off. The story begins when a meteor crashes on a farm, infecting the land with a strange, pulsing light. The crops rot, animals mutate, and time itself seems to warp. Worst of all, the family at the center of the story slowly descends into madness, each member unraveling in a different way. The color isn't just an alien. It is a force of pure otherness, beyond human comprehension. It doesn't come with motives or messages. It can't be bought and it can't be reasoned with. It just is. And its very presence corrodes reality itself. By the end, everything we've seen is consumed, leaving behind only a hint of its power. It's Lovecraft distilled to its essence, the incomprehensible invading the ordinary. Number 5, we have a classic of the genre in 2007's The Mist. Frank Darabont's The Mist is famous, namely for its devastating ending. But the entire film is steeped in dread. A small town engulfed in a strange mist after a storm, and within the mist lurks creatures straight out of a nightmare. But the true horror? It's not the monsters. It's the people. Trapped inside a grocery store, survivors begin to turn on each other. Fear breeds fanaticism, with a religious zealot convincing others that blood sacrifices are the only way to appease the creatures. In the face of the unknown, humanity will devour itself. The finale is perhaps the most nihilistic in horror history. Without spoiling too much, it hammers home the idea that in a universe this cruel, survival isn't guaranteed, and hope can be the cruelest lie of them all. It's not just a monster movie. It is an existential gut punch. Number 3 is an entry that I don't see nearly enough on cosmic horror lists. It is It. Stephen King's classic, whether it is the 90s miniseries or 2017-2019 version, Pennywise the Clown has become a horror icon. But what makes it cosmic horror is what lies beneath the clown makeup. In Stephen King's mythos, Pennywise is just one form of an ancient, interdimensional being that feeds on fear. Its true shape exists outside of human comprehension. What we see is only the mask it wears to communicate. Both versions hint at a vast mythology, though I really wish there were more swings made as far as the cosmic side of this movie. There are some things about the book that need to stay in the book because Stephen King is a particular sort of writer, and it's not a Stephen King book if there isn't something excessive in one of his books. But the novel explores the mythology even deeper than the movies do. The kids' battle with Pennywise isn't just good versus evil. It is humanity versus an apex predator that has existed for eons, one we can barely comprehend. What makes it cosmic horror is its scale. Pennywise isn't simply haunting Derry. It is Derry. It's woven into the fabric of the town itself. Every missing child, every tragedy, every cycle of violence stems from this entity feeding beneath the surface. The kids may win with a temporary victory, but the implication is clear. You can never truly defeat the infinite. Next up, I'm going to cheat a little bit at number 4. I've got 3 movies because honestly, I wanted to challenge myself a little bit and not give 3 entries on a list to the same trilogy. We are talking about John Carpenter's Apocalypse trilogy. When you're talking about my favorite directors, that is a very short list, and 2 of them are deep within the horror genre. My absolute favorite is Wes Craven. Nipping at his heels is John Carpenter. John Carpenter has such an eye for pulling on people's heartstrings and creating atmosphere, basically out of nothing, at a time where he couldn't rely on big set pieces or elaborate effects. Carpenter's first entry, 1982's The Thing, is a masterpiece. Bar none, for a lot of people, it is their number 1 on the list. It is steeped in paranoia. In the frozen wastelands of Antarctica, a group of researchers encounter a shape-shifting alien that can perfectly imitate any life form. Once it's inside the camp, no one knows who's human and who's already been consumed. The terror of the thing lies in its uncertainty. Every interaction becomes a test of trust. Anyone could be the enemy. And worse, if the alien reaches civilization, humanity itself is screwed. Cosmic horror thrives on the idea that the enemy is both external and internal. And The Thing, namely the closing moments of the movie, nails that perfectly. The film's bleak ending, 2 survivors, exhausted, suspicious of each other, waiting to freeze to death, embodies the coldest parts of cosmic horror. It is the foundations of many theories and debates, but what we do know is there is no escape. There is no victory. There is only delay. One of the most underrated entries in Carpenter's trilogy, 1987's Prince of Darkness. Part sci-fi, part theology, entirely cosmic horror. A group of scientists and priests investigate a strange container of swirling green liquid in a church basement, only to discover that it may be a manifestation of pure evil, an anti-God from outside our universe. The brilliance of this film is how it merges science and religion together. Equations and ancient scriptures both point to the same conclusion. Humanity is not the center of existence. We are caught between incomprehensible forces that dwarf us, forces that existed long before us and will exist long after we're gone. By the end, reality itself begins to fracture and dreams bleed into prophecy. The suggestion that our universe is just one thin layer with a darker opposite reality pressing against it is pure Lovecraftian dread. To round out the trilogy, we have 1994's In the Mouth of Madness. I remember when this one came out, and I picked it up from the video store as soon as it hit the shelves, not knowing about the other 2. Carpenter concludes this trilogy with the most direct Lovecraft homage of all. Insurance investigator John Trent is hired to find missing horror novelist Sutter Kane. But as he tracks Kane, he finds himself drawn into the writer's stories until he can't tell where fiction ends and reality begins. The horror here isn't just monsters. It's the literal collapse of reality. As Kane's books spread, readers begin to lose their minds, reshaping the world into his twisted vision. Trent's eventual realization that he himself is just a character in Kane's narrative is the ultimate cosmic horror revelation. Identity, free will, reality, all illusions at the hands of a godlike storyteller. By the final scene, when Trent sits in a theater watching his own life projected on screen, laughing and weeping at his insignificance, we feel the true weight of cosmic horror. Humanity is not just small. We may not even be real. This is one of those stories that makes me fundamentally understand why some people crawl out of their skin when they think about the simulation theory. Number two, we have an underrated movie, and I really think that most of the reason for that is due to the box art on the original release. We've got 1998's Phantoms. Dean Koontz' Phantoms often gets overlooked as simply a Scream knockoff. Now, if you've seen it, you know it is anything but a Scream knockoff, but look at that poster. It is 1000% a Scream-looking knockoff. They knew what they were doing with Scream 1 and 2, especially given who's in it, but it deserves recognition for blending mystery, small town paranoia, and cosmic horror. A group of survivors stumble upon a Colorado town where nearly everyone has vanished. At first, it seems like mass murder or a plague, but the truth is far stranger. What they uncover is an ancient, primordial entity lurking beneath the earth, one that has influenced human mythology for centuries. Demons, gods, legends, they're all just fragments of this creature's influence. It doesn't just kill, it absorbs, reshaping what it consumes into something frankly unrecognizable. The film might not have the polish of Carpenter or the intensity of The Mist, but its central idea is pure dread. And it captures the small town, suffocating feel that it's going for. The idea that our myths and realities and religions aren't false, but simply distortions of something real. And far more terrifying is Lovecraftian at its core. Plus, Ben Affleck really was the bomb in Phantoms, yo. Comment below if you know what that's from. Number one was my entry into the genre and fundamentally bothered me to my very core. It is 1997's Event Horizon. At the very top of this list sits a movie that fuses science fiction with the darkest elements of cosmic horror. A rescue team is sent to investigate a spaceship that disappeared into a black hole only to discover it has returned, bringing something with it. The ship has traveled to another dimension, a place of pure chaos and suffering. What makes Event Horizon so powerful is its refusal to define that place. Is it hell? Is it another universe? A higher dimension twisted by our perception? The lack of answers makes it terrifying. As the crew succumbs to visions and madness, the real horror becomes clear. The void doesn't need to explain itself. It exists, and contact with it is enough to shatter the human mind. In a genre filled with aliens and ghosts, Event Horizon remains singular because it dares to suggest that hell itself is just a neighbor in the infinite void of space. Cosmic horror is never about the monster in front of you. It's about the vast, uncaring abyss behind it. These films capture that in different ways, through paranoia, grief, madness, or just the simple realization that we are absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of the universe, that we don't matter. Well, here's the real question. Which of these horrors do you think is closest to the truth? Drop your pick in the comments below before the abyss notices that we're talking about it. Freaks, appreciate you. Until next time, peace.